Welcome to Fabric Monday. Today I'll talk about warehouse and deployment pipelines. How the warehouse can work together deployment pipelines. Here I have my warehouse. This warehouse has one table called my test. This table has one single record. This warehouse is located in a workspace called Summit Demo Back Dev. This is the workspace. This is where the warehouse is located. This workspace is part of a deployment pipeline. We have a test environment, Summit Demo Backend Test. And there is no warehouse here, no warehouse in the test environment. Let's promote this warehouse to the test environment and let's see what happens, how the warehouse is behaving in relation to the deployment pipeline. Here is the warehouse, the deployment pipeline. Let's deploy the warehouse from the development environment to the test environment. I have here the deployment pipeline. I select the test environment and ask to deploy the warehouse from the dev environment. Deploy. The deployment was completed successfully. Let's take a look on how is this warehouse in the test workspace. Submit backend test, and you can see my warehouse here. So I have the warehouse from the dev workspace and the warehouse from the test workspace. Let's check our table, and that's the surprise. The table is here, it's present. This is a surprise because when Fabric started, the deployment of the schema was not happening. It was not possible. But now the warehouse and the deployment pipeline are working integrated with each other. So when we deploy a warehouse, the schema is deployed as well together, the warehouse. Let's make some experiments in relation to this schema deployment. First, I'll create a new record in my test warehouse, a record which is different from the record in the dev environment. In my dev environment, the record has name test1. I'll create a record with a different value for that field. I have the insert here. Let's go to the test warehouse and run. In this way, my warehouse in dev environment and in test environment have different records inside the same table. Let's see what happens when I create a new table in the warehouse. So in the dev environment, I'll create a new table called myTest2 in this same warehouse. Let's see what happens. The table is created. I have the table myTest2 here. Of course, this table doesn't exist in the test environment. Let's make a deployment. Let's deploy my warehouse again from the dev environment to the test environment again. The deployment pipeline will recognize in a few instances that the warehouse is not the same anymore. The warehouse is different. There it is. So let's make a deployment using the deployment pipeline again. Deploy. Deployment complete. This means that I can go to the warehouse in that environment, refresh the tables, and there it is, my table, my test2. It's empty, it has no records. That's not a problem. That's one point. The records are never promoted from one environment to another. The schema is promoted, the data is never promoted. And the myTest table was not affected. It continues with the record from the test environment. So the myTest table was not affected. Let's make another experiment. This time, let's change the myTest table, adding one new field in the myTest table. This should not affect the existing record. The field accepts null. Let's do this in the development environment. The new field is created. There it is. Address field accepting null. Let's go to the deployment pipeline. It identifies the warehouse is different again. And I'll deploy the warehouse one more time. That's it. The warehouse is deployed. Let's check. We can see the new field in the table myTest. the field address is here, but this time the table my tests is empty. The record that existed here was dropped. So a promotion of a change of structure drops the content of the table. I can promote new tables. I can promote a schema with new tables. If I change the structure of one table, the existing record will be dropped during the promotion. So you need to be very careful how to use the deployment pipelines with warehouses. The deployment pipelines are capable to promote new tables, but they are not capable to promote schema changes. Thank you very much for watching and see you next week.